Let's talk dreams. Let's talk big dreams. Places you want to go, people you want to meet, things you want to do. A desire that you have that is so far out that it barely even seems possible. Maybe it's exploring space, or curing cancer, or maybe you just want that new iPhone but you don't have any kidneys to spare. So why are we discussing dreams? If you've looked at your pamphlet, you'll notice that this talk is titled The Inception of Deception. Well, the fact is, you've already been deceived. Because this talk is as much about aspiration as it is about deception. Frankly, however, I'm just saying that to be fancy. This talk, I actually just changed half this talk after finalizing the title. So let's start off with deception, however, since it's in the title. How many of you see this woman going clockwise? I see quite a few hands. How many of you see her going anti-clockwise? Again, I see quite a few hands. So what's going on here? How can we be seeing her going in different directions despite the fact we're looking at the same screen? Well, the thing is, what we're looking at is identical. It's how our brains choose to perceive it that varies. Now, this is just a 2D animation. If you've only been able to see her going one way so far, then try to look slightly away from it, try to eliminate the third dimension. Try to maybe look at her leg and look at it as a pendulum instead of going back and forth. And soon your brain will have probably decided that she's going the other way because one of its hypotheses doesn't fit. So the thing is, the problem with your brain is that it's used to 3D. It's so used to 3D that anything that it considers could be 3D, it'll turn it to 3D. So it's adding extra information here, and because of that, it's trying to be too smart. And as a result of that, it ends up being a complete idiot. Now, most of us think that deception is usually intentional, as if it has some sort of malicious force behind it, right? And yet, it often doesn't. I've actually subconsciously been deceiving a lot of my colleagues and peers for quite some time now, and I didn't even realize it. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I realized that a lot of people around me don't know that I can speak Hindi. तो जब मैं ऐसे बोलता हूँ, तब सबको झटका लग जाता है. So sometimes, back to English, however, our brains add things, and sometimes they take things away. So let's look at an example of the latter. Over here, we have 3 doors, okay? Now, behind one of them is a posh car, let's say a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. Behind the other 2 are sheep. So unless we have some sheep fanatics here, I assume most of us will be going for the car. So now we arbitrarily select one of these doors and open one of the others to reveal a sheep behind it. Now you have an option. You can either stick to the first door that you selected, or you can switch to the second closed door. Now it seems pretty simple. There's 2 options, a car behind one and a sheep behind the other. 50-50 chance, right? Well, not quite. Let's look at another variant of this problem that I created myself. Here we have 16 doors instead of the typical 3. Again, select one, open all the doors so that there's only one left. And now it becomes a bit more obvious. The one that we initially selected has only a 1 out of 16 chance of getting the car, right? And yet, the door that has the car, regardless of which of the other 15 you select, that door will always be the second one that remains closed. Which means that there's actually a 15 out of 16 chance of the second door having the car, and a 1 out of 16 for the first one. Now if you go back to the original problem, this applies here as well. And once again, it's 1 by 3 and 2 by 3 instead of half and half like we initially thought. However, the difference here was that in the first one, it was so much more relatable. There were only 3 doors. There was only one door that contained extra information. So our brain just put it aside and just looked at these 2. But in the second one, we had 14 extra doors apart from those 2. And that was enough to throw it off track and make it realize that something was off. Now, I'd like to hold a little activity. So I want a few people to come up here. First of all, I want someone who's married. Mrs. Mukul, do you mind doing the honors? In a way, yes. Now I want someone who's unmarried. Actually, we can have anyone from the audience here because we have so many children. A volunteer, please. Yeah, there you go. Come up. Perfect. And finally, I want Mr. Oza to come up here. But please don't tell us if you're married or not, because that will remain a secret for now. Now, I just want you to stand in front of me like this. Just face that way and stand in front of me. Perfect. You can also stand there in the same way. Mr. Oza, I'd like you to stand in front of her. In front of her. And Siddhant, please stand in front of Mr. Oza. Okay, so we have 3 people here. We have someone who's married, we have someone who we don't know their marital status, and we have someone who is unmarried. The question is a married person looking at an unmarried person? Now, first of all, you might be a bit confused because we don't know what the status of the person in the middle is. However, there's a bit more to it. The Guardian hosted this question as a survey just a little while back, and they drew a conclusion that that nearly 70% of people thought the same way. However, let's look at something. Mr. Oza, please tell us, are you married?
No, I'm not.
He's not. And yet, Mrs. Mukul is married. She's looking at Mr. Oza, and so the condition is fulfilled. Now let's assume the converse were true. Let's assume Mr. Oza was married. He'd still be looking at my friend Siddhant there, and the condition would still be fulfilled. In this case, so in either case, this condition works. Now what happened here was initially we just jumped to the conclusion that we couldn't determine anything because the middle person's status was indeterminate. And yet we could, because this was a lapse in our logic, and now that we've done it, we can see that our brain was tricked again. Thank you so much. You can go back. Please have a round of applause for them. Now, moving on, it's pretty clear that our brain can be tricked very easily. However, I'm not just here to tell you that we're all a little bit stupid. What I'm here to say is that this oversight is a result of something far greater. And that is one of our greatest abilities, pattern recognition. And when this ability backfires, it results in the sort of deceit that we're seeing here. So let's move on to this image. Now there's so many buildings in this image. Has anyone ever seen any of these particular buildings before? No, I see maybe one or two hands, not much. And yet we can all tell that they're buildings. They're buildings, and yet we've never seen these particular ones before. How do we do this? We've seen buildings before. So we have algorithms effectively in our brain detecting that for us and telling us that they're buildings. It works the same way with water. It works the same way with the sky. We've never seen this particular drop of water before, but we've never seen this particular patch of sky before, and yet we know what it is. Now, the concept of artificial intelligence tries to emulate this. It tries to replicate the wonders that our minds work. And in fact, I've been trying to work on a program that diagnoses skin diseases just by taking a picture of your hand with it on it. And this is pretty amazing. But you might think that despite that, a flaw is still a flaw, right? Even if it's an ability, it has a flaw in it and it should still be fixed. Well, that's not quite true either, because this flaw, it's actually something that can also benefit us. Because in this way, with literature, it's an entirely different scenario. Now, when I'm not a sleep-deprived zombie walking here on stage, I'm actually writing quite often. And I write novels, I write poetry, I do a lot of stuff. And with literature, one of the most common elements you see are plot twists. I mean, who wasn't excited when Voldemort came back, or Gandalf came back, in fact? And they're pretty amazing. They make us love a book. They make us generate deeper connections with the characters. And the thing is, an ideal human wouldn't be able to see these coming, because they'd piece together all the pieces, the foreshadowing before that, and they'd know what was happening. So much of our entertainment actually comes from being deceived. And we can see this with the previous three problems as well. When we were looking at them, I'm sure we were all engaged. We were happy, in fact, to see that we were deceived. We loved it. It was entertainment. And in that way, this actually allows us to be perfect in a sense that true perfection would never give us. Now, the placebo effect works on a similar effect. It's effectively deceiving our minds into curing our body. Now, this very morning, my dad gave me a pill, and he was like, okay, take this, this will cure your nervousness. And I'm actually not sure if what he gave me was for that, or if that was just a pill intended to induce this very effect, to make me think that I wouldn't be nervous, because whatever it was, it worked to quite some degree. And this effect can also be replicated. We can tell our brains to do a lot of things. If we tell them that we're going to be successful, chances are we will be. A year ago, I was sitting here in this audience. I was at TEDxYouth JPIS 2015. I was sitting down there. I saw Baichung Bhutia come up, give an amazing speech, go off. I saw Mitra Thea come up, spread amazing ideas, go off. And I was sitting there thinking, I can never do this. I will never be able to do anything like this. And here we are, a year later. What happened that year? 2 weeks ago, when the prospect of doing this talk first came up, even then my brain was like, Onkar, no, what are you doing? Are you absolutely stupid? You cannot take this talk up. You can't talk in front of all these people. And yet I did. How? Deceit. I fooled myself. I tricked myself into believing that I would be able to do this. I tricked myself into doing this talk, and I tricked myself into following my passion. Sorry about the mic there. And in doing so, I managed to put my ideas out there like I would never have been able to otherwise. But the thing is, I'm still nervous, a bit. So I'm gonna do something that I've never done before, and possibly that no one on a TEDx stage has ever done before. I'm gonna eat a biscuit in front of all of you. Why, you ask? I think that you are wolves. My brain thinks that you are all wolves, trying to eat me here. And I'm scared, or my body is at least. And that's why it wants to run away. But if I eat, it'll know I'm safe, because why would I eat when I have wolves trying to kill me, right? Right. So clearly, this is helping. I'm already a lot less nervous. Now I'm walking towards you. Why? Because it's making me less nervous. If I was going away from you, I think I was running away. If I'm running away, I'm in danger. If I'm walking towards you, I'm not in danger. So here I am, talking in front of you. And finally, you can do all this too. Sorry, let me just finish eating. Do you want to change the world? Do you want to cure cancer? Do you want to take humanity to great heights like it's never been before? Don't just want it. Believe. Know that you can do it. The only limitation on you stopping you from doing any of that is your brain. Therefore, assume that you will be able to achieve all of your goals. And you most certainly will. Thank you so much.